Stop everything. The most unexpected and brutal turn in hip-hop drama this year is about to happen. The man who was allegedly at the center of the vicious backstage attack that left Jim Jones unconscious and hardly breathing is currently battling for his life in an intensive care unit in New York. Cameron, that's who. Yes. It is what you read. After a Dipset reunion event, what began as a heated verbal brawl swiftly descended into a violent altercation so sudden and savage that paramedics had to be summoned. There is blood all throughout, no security, and in an hour, Cameron was placed in handcuffs, arrested, transported in the rear of a police vehicle. This wasn't simply a brawl. According to insiders, years of unspoken treachery, financial conflicts, and personal grudges culminated in this outburst. And now, there is a man in the hospital. The other is incarcerated. However, what actually took place backstage? Who initiated it? And what covert treachery ultimately pushed this feud to the breaking point? The video, the messages, and the mystery that will soon be exposed will astound you. For this reason, surpasses hip-hop in scope. It's a personal matter. We must go back in time to see how two Harlem superstars got from sharing a stage to one of them battling for his life and the other being imprisoned. Because yesterday night's events backstage weren't a coincidence. They had been planned for years as the two main members of the Diplomats, often known as Dipset, Cameron and Jim Jones, were more than simply partners. They were brothers in arms. They introduced Harlem Heat to mainstream hip-hop in the early 2000s, amassing hits, feuds, and memorable incidents. However, behind the scenes, early cracks appeared. Former insiders claimed that money began to disappear. Bookings for the show were double promised. The rights to publish were subtly altered. Ego, too. It made everything poisonous. Jim started acting like a boss, while Cameron remained the frontman and the visionary. He promoted solo endeavors, signed performers, and started apparel lines. Some referred to it as growth. Betrayal was whispered by others when Cam released a 30-minute confessional video in 2017. Detailing the reasons behind Dipset's dissolution, things reached a breaking point. Although he didn't mention names, the attacks were obvious. Days later, Jim answered on Hot 97 crying, "I worked with you to build this. For this, I bled. You also abandoned me." Supporters choose sides. Cam was all business, according to some. Others said that Jim was just emotional. The people believed that they had fixed it. For gigs, they got back together, played at festivals, took pictures with each other, all for the cameras though. Behind the scenes, according to sources, the feud never ended. It simply became deeper and quieter. When Cameron started a podcast in 2023 and reportedly declined to have Jim co-host, things heated up again. A leaked email thread claims that Cam's boss wrote, "Let's maintain control while maintaining the Dipset brand. We don't want the new wave to be derailed by old baggage." Jim was caught off guard because he had openly endorsed the performance. However, he remained silent rather than openly addressing Cam. Too silent. Last night was a much-discussed Dipset reunion night at the Apollo Theater. The concert was sold out. The building is filled with legends. Zeke, Dwells, Jim, and Cam are all expected to perform. The first warning sign, though, is that Cameron arrived late. According to sources, he showed up with a tiny team, refused to let them inside the dressing room, and went straight to the stage manager to alter the set order. Jim was not informed. Backstage, chaos broke out when Cam arrived on stage early and omitted a stanza that Jim was meant to rap. Jim allegedly confronts Cam minutes after the concert concludes in security footage that has not yet been made public. And the dispute. Nuclear. Screaming. Shoving. According to one witness, it was years of anger released in a mere 30 seconds. It's unclear what happened next. However, this is confirmed. Jim Jones was discovered unresponsive by a lavatory door. Cameron was observed shouting, "He asked for it," as he left with his fists spattered. And in a matter of minutes, Cam was handcuffed by the cops. Details are still being investigated. But reports suggest that a metal microphone stand could have been involved. Jim had a serious head injury, facial cuts, and what seemed to be a concussion when EMS arrived. He has not yet recovered consciousness after being taken to Mount Sinai Hospital, where medical professionals described his condition as critical but stable. In the meanwhile, Cameron was charged with second-degree assault, with the possibility of further charges because of the seriousness of the injuries and previous text-based threats. Hold on. Earlier threats. Indeed, the following messages were found in leaked direct messages from a burner account purportedly connected to Cam. He has another opportunity to openly insult me. I've had enough of being modest. Fans are now assembling the puzzle. This was not an angry outburst. A boiling point was reached here. At last, it spilt in front of the whole industry. And the worst part? Before the altercation ever started, Joel Santana departed the location. Why? Because he didn't want to be caught in the midst after allegedly receiving a tip about tension backstage. This indicates that even close members of the Dipset were aware that something was coming. What started out as a Harlem celebration has now devolved into a criminal inquiry, a media frenzy, and maybe the permanent demise of DIPSET. It was meant to be a celebration, a comeback to fame for one of the most illustrious rap groups in Harlem. The fans were excited. There were media outlets hovering. Celebrities even attended the historic Dipset reunion night backstage. However, no one anticipated that one of its founders would be comatose on the ground before to the encore, while the other would be handcuffed and on his way to jail. Here's what actually transpired and why this wasn't a simple altercation. It was a case of personal warfare. Minutes after Cameron left the stage, began after being eliminated from many songs during the performance. Jim Jones allegedly barged into Cam's dressing room and yelled, "Cam, you've always been cunning. Always. But this evening, you were the one who played yourself." According to several backstage insiders, Cam refused to back down. He got to his feet, met Jim's gaze, and retaliated. "Are you upset because I didn't include your verse in a song I wrote? Before I remind you how this began, have a seat." The spark was that security retreated. The shouts intensified, and in a matter of seconds, anarchy broke out. According to one source, the altercation went like this. At first, it wasn't fists. It was just about everything. They grabbed anything they could, including mic stands, seats, and water bottles. Cam ducked as Jim attacked. Cam swung hard after that. Jim hit the wall at that point and simply fell. It was already too late when security eventually stepped in. Jim was lying cold, breathing shallowly, and his temple was bleeding. Cam refused to go peacefully, pacing the corridor with damaged knuckles. According to reports, he said, "Let them arrest me. Let Harlem discover the true reason this crew survived." This is the part, though, that nobody anticipated. Even before the police showed up, Cameron took out his phone and sent a video message. Yes. He recorded himself addressing to his supporters, admirers, and adversaries straight after the battle, an hour later. The clip was released online. With his shirt partially ripped and his fists swelling, Cam stares straight at the camera in the poorly lit video and says, "Have you ever been stabbed in the back so frequently that you can't remember where the pain began? Jim is that person. Family is that? They deceived you with it. This evening, I simply removed the trash. Internet collapsed. The fans weren't prepared. In less than 3 hours, 2 million people saw the video." The remarks were split. After years of silence, he's finally losing it. It's not a diss song. It's war. It's his loyalty wrapped around trauma. But hold on, things get messier. Because a voicemail from a previous Dipset tour manager was leaked while Jim was being hurried into the emergency room, hardly responding, proving what many fans had long suspected. Since 2009, Jim and Cam have been at odds. That reunion with Versus, it wasn't real. They didn't even talk until a camera was rolling and they had different riders and dressing rooms. What then went wrong this time? Several people close to both sides claim that Cameron just learned that Jim had been negotiating a deal for a docu-series without Cam's help. The suggested title? Built from Nothing, Dipset's True Story, What About the Pitch Deck? Jim was portrayed as the leader, and Cam's name was mostly omitted. According to one insider, Cam felt as though it had been wiped. As if, while he was still alive, his whole legacy was being taken. The ultimate betrayal was that documentary series N, who did that pitch deck leak. Zyke Freaky. Yes, exactly. The fourth member of Dipset, who was usually mute, had had enough of the phony smiles. 3 days prior to the Apollo event, he allegedly emailed Cam the paper along with a scribbled note that said, "He's been moving behind your back. Do things your way." When did Cam enter that reunion then? He wasn't only upset, he had a ton of receipts. The treachery is further exacerbated by what transpired following the altercation, because Chrissy Lampkin, a team's fiancé, wrote a mysterious remark on Instagram only hours after Cam was arrested. Because their truth will expose your lies, some individuals choose to remain silent. Was that a warning? A jab at Cam? Was she talking about anything else, though? But that's not all. Just as the fight was making headlines, a snapshot of a text exchange between Jim and a prominent Netflix executive appeared at 4:07 a.m. just 11 days ago. Jim wrote, in the texts, "Cam refuses to play ball. We'll avoid him in our writing. In any case, the drama is all that matters to the spectator." There are currently more than 20,000 shares of the text. On X Twitter, here is what we presently understand. A project that told. Cam's tale was rejected. Jim attempted to take all responsibility. For the Dipset legacy. Zeke raised the alarm. What about the reunion show? Was it a setup ready to blow up? The worst thing. Jim is unable to react while he lies in a hospital bed, and Cam is already winning the public relations battle while he is incarcerated. However, one query still stands. Cam recorded a video after the brawl, but who leaked it? 'Cause it was not a spontaneous video, it was intentional, framed, lit, cut flawlessly. He posted it with assistance from someone. And that someone may be closer to Jim than anyone realizes, because the murmurs are becoming louder now. Someone is providing Cam with information in Jim's camp. And if that's accurate, it's not simply a case of wounded egos in this conflict. It's about treachery, espionage, and the fall of a dynasty. When everyone believed they had the whole picture, Jim in the ICU, Cam in jail, and Dipset broken, an additional layer of treachery emerged. Completely appending our preconceived notions, Cameron's post-fight confession was leaked with purpose rather than out of emotion. His phone, his video, and his plan were all accessible to someone within the camp. As detectives dug deeper, it became evident that this was a planned play rather than Cam acting erratically. Now for Ruru. Yes, Cameron's ex-fiancé, whom fans believed had moved on from the drama years ago, unexpectedly returned to the spotlight just hours after Cam was booked. At 6:42 a.m., Juju shared a tweet that sent shockwaves across the hip-hop community. The truth explodes like an earthquake when it is suppressed for too long. Harlem, pay attention to what comes next. What is she discussing? And source close to Ruru's inner circle claims that she gave Cam access to years' worth of emails, texts, and recordings that describe dubious business dealings, embezzled earnings, and covert backroom betrayals between Cam and Jim only days before the Apollo event. Jim approved merchandising rights under a fictitious LLC incorporated in Nevada, without Cam's knowledge, according to one email that was leaked soon after her post. The documentation was a disaster. The trail ended with an unidentified company manager who had connections to Chrissy. According to the insider, this was more than simply a music feud. This was outright deception. Cam was unaware that his money was being transferred through fictitious accounts. The actual shocker, though? There was a movie attached to one of the emails, a covertly recorded Zoom conference shows Jim discussing with TV executives the possibility of eliminating Cam from the forthcoming Dipset documentary. Jim states in the video, "Cam is erratic. He is beyond our control. We create the legacy and tell the tale." That line? In less than half an hour, it became viral. Reddit became viral. Twitter was inundated by fans. There were memes everywhere. "We shape the legacy, we tell the story." Captioned over a flaming logo of Dipset, Cam constructed the structure. Jim replaced the locks. Verified accounts even commented, "Joe Budden, honesty is the foundation of legacy. Silence does not shape it. This is not the end of it. Cam has every right to snap," said Charlemagne. What do you anticipate when you remove a man from his own narrative? And Jim was still asleep when all of this was going on. In order to reduce swelling in his brain, he had been put into a medically induced coma. Fans were divided between hoping for his recovery and demanding retribution for the years of treachery that now looked indisputable. As no official update had been provided, then it grew dimmer, an audio clip that was purportedly taken a week before the reunion was released online. It was definitely Cameron's voice. "I'm telling you all. I won't scream if he plays me again. I will refrain from arguing. I will put an end to it." The audio was unprocessed. It sounded more like someone who had been pushed to the limit than a man yelling. And the rumors of an insider mole grew along with that tape. Because this is the unexpected twist. The Zoom conversation and the LLC paperwork were purportedly leaked by one of Jim's own team members. That individual, Marcus Troy, a junior financial advisor, has been employed by Chrissy's personal team for more than 3 years. Court documents state that Marcus has been communicating with Cam's camp since 2022, providing information and covertly recording money irregularities. Why? He claimed to have idolized Dipset as a child. He couldn't bear it when he learned the truth about what was actually happening behind the scenes. Boom. Music was never the only aspect of the reality. This has to do with money laundering, reputations based on deception, and legacy theft. Cameron, meantime, was freed on bond. At noon the next day, he left central booking with his head held high without making a press release. And after taking one last glance into the cameras, he got into a black SUV. He shared the following on Instagram. "1 hour later, you attempted to remove me. It's the only thing they remember now is me." The teaser followed. Dipset, the tapes they never wanted you to see. It's a blurry black and white film that was uploaded to a private YouTube account connected to Cam's inner circle. The 30-second preview reveals entered a studio with a big binder bearing the title, The Truth Files. Snippets of previous interviews in which Jim extols togetherness, brief images of contracts, wire transactions, and bank statements, and Cam's voiceover at the end, behind closed doors. "They attempted to destroy my legacy. I'm now publicly terminating theirs." The comments section went crazy. This has just turned into the largest betrayal in the history of hip-hop. We're witnessing a live, in-person fallout between Tupac and Biggie. Jim needs to awaken because the truth is going to bury him. However, they did just when things couldn't be much worse, since another person entered the ring. Max B. Indeed. The rapper from Harlem, who had a complex past with both Cam and Jim, appeared on Instagram Live while laughing and sipping champagne. From jail, these guys weren't constructed the same way, as I mentioned to you years ago. Cam held it steady. Jimmy has been eating snakes. The streets were speaking, even in prison, and now, something has changed in the energy. People no longer question who is correct. They want to know the extent of the treachery. Who else participated in the plot to remove Cam from his own history? Since he's no longer there, Cam single quotes has got receipts. When will the complete document be released? Jim's reputation might not simply be destroyed. It might put a stop to. Dipset completely. The hip-hop community as a whole froze as word of the vicious attack spread on all platforms. Jim Jones was admitted to the hospital. Cameron was taken into custody. The decline of the Dipset empire, minute by minute, tweet by tweet. The world watched as what had been written off as old heads beefing suddenly turned into the year's most compelling, perilous, and emotionally fraught drama. Public shock becomes fury. #Jim Jones, #FreeCam, and #DIPSET drama were all trending nationwide by 9 a.m. the next day, though there were differing opinions. Everyone's voice was heard clearly. We saw a brotherhood devolve into violence. To be honest, I can no longer hold Cam responsible for his outburst. Jim used Cam's bricks to build an empire and assumed he would never speak again. The day's most popular tweet. A picture of Jim and Cam from the Come Home With Me era standing side by side with a picture of Cam leaving jail captioned, "From jail bars to pink furs. What became of Harlem?" Fan reactions lead to intense discussions. Reaction videos from followers analyzing every new footage, released communication, and document connected to the betrayal were all over TikTok. A few artists experienced mental distress. "Bro, they were my heroes." One is currently battling for his life, while the other is battling for his legacy. Others used a more ruthless strategy. Jim attempted to alter history. It was written in blood. By Cam. Every hour, Instagram Lives appeared, with bloggers and battle rappers alike staking their claim. Chrissy has been pulling strings. Watch her next. Jim has always been a snake in silk. Cam is finally standing up for everything. They tried to take industry voices in hip-hop respond. Fat Joe shared a touching tale on social media. Loyalty is more powerful than any weapon when it is broken. I'm praying for Jim. Cam deserves respect for keeping his name safe. Funk Flex shocked Hot 97 by saying, "Years ago, I sensed something wasn't right. Way too many dealings behind closed doors. Too many egos." Cam was supporting that crew with pride and bandages. The truth is now leaking out. On The Jason Lee Show, Remy Ma. This is the result of family members not discussing it. Let's not pretend, though, that Jim didn't shove Cam into a corner. When they are neglected for too long, people lose their temper, never one to hold back. Joe Budden published an urgent podcast episode called The Legacy Heist. They attempted to defraud Cam of more than just cash. They attempted to pilfer the story. He retaliated by using exposure, the only language they knew. The originals are observing theories were raised by a mysterious tweet issued by Jay-Z's ROC Nation. Receipts preserve legacy. Silence does not earn it. Was Cam the target? A cautionary tale. In any case, supporters embraced it. The first Harlem business entrepreneur, Dame Dash, went live on Instagram. "I informed them. I cautioned them. You don't ignore those who helped shape who you are." Cam has been silent for far too long. Harlem is now awakening. Blogs and news sources take off every hour. Vlad TV, The Shade Room, and The Complex were updated. The headline on page 6 read, "Blood on the Mic, Violence and Betrayal and a Dipset Reunion." The dissection of events took up a whole episode on The Breakfast Club. According to Charlemagne, ego is not the issue. It has to do with erasure. Cam is standing up for any artists who have ever had their stories written out. In the meantime, an insider's exclusive was published by Hollywood Unlocked, claiming that Jim's documentary had already been approved by Netflix without Cam's consent. 3 days before to the performance, Cam learnt. He entered prepared for battle for that reason. The backlash against Chrissy and Jewels is growing. Chrissy Lampkin began to gain popularity for all the wrong reasons as more receipts were released. Fans discovered an old clip from 2019 in which she made a joke. Jim made Dipset valuable, but Cam made it famous. That sentence plays over dozens of TikTok remixes that feature the disclosed fraud documents and Cam's post-fight footage. In less than 6 hours. One tweet received 300,000 likes. The covert mastermind behind this treachery was Chrissy. She shifted parts. The board is now on fire. Juelz Santana also received criticism. It now appeared strange since he had left the Apollo concert so early. Juelz departed as he was aware that it would blow out. That quiet says a lot. However, what completely changed the tide? The supporters takeover. There were petitions going around. Request that Netflix halt the documentary about Dipset until Cam is restored. Let Cam share his story to preserve Harlem's legacy. After raising just $400, a GoFundMe for Jim's medical expenses was closed. With several supporters writing, "With all due respect to Jim, it is impossible to overlook the betrayal." In the meantime, the real Dipset, story told by Cameron's fan-made documentary trailer, received 2 million views on YouTube in a single day. Cam is being praised for speaking the truth about culture. A historian from Harlem. One individual went too far, however. One question reverberates more loudly than any rhythm or diss track, while Jim remains unconscious and Cam continues to tease more receipts. Was there anyone else involved? For what if additional names begin to surface and Cam's assertions prove to be accurate? Not only will this destroy Dipset's reputation, but it will also reveal a whole sector of the economy based on phony allegiance. One more bombshell emerged. Just when everyone believed the Dipset story had reached its climax, came out on bond. Jim fighting for his life. Chrissy trending for all the wrong reasons. And it completely upended everything. A confirmed burner Twitter account owned by a former Tricafella intern tweeted a terrifying message at precisely 2:03 a.m. "You all paid attention to Cam and Jim, but you're ignoring the important question. Who funded the documentary?" A PDF of a leaked business ledger was sent. A $500,000 wire transfer was displayed on the first page. Who sent it? LLC of Chrissy Lampkin. The one who got it? Entertainment group Harlem Vision. Y. Built from nothing. The real story of Dipset has upfront creative control by Dash In and Concealed. Among the notes, final modifications will be approved by the creative lead. Cameron is not necessary for the conclusion of the story. Boom. Jim was excluding Cam. But that wasn't all. The operation was being funded by Chrissy. She wasn't only supporting her partner, she was causing the collapse a few hours later. It's an unpublished footage that was purportedly from the initial rough version of the documentary series appeared. It included Jim, Juelz, and a few industry insiders in a roundtable interview. There was only one mention of Cam's name. As a founder? No. Not as Dipset's heart. As someone who lost focus. However, in the video, Jim states, "Cam went left. We remained on course." That word, "we remained on course." It was a battle cry that went viral on Twitter, and it wasn't good for Jim. So the goal was to destroy the person who created the blueprint. There are cameras rolling, and this is legacy theft. Here's the true cliffhanger. THOUGHA. Preview for Part 2 of Cam's Vengeance series was shared by his crew and is titled The Vault. Never been heard voices in unreleased calls, emails, and betrayals. The voiceover. Direct, gentle, and poisonous. You believe this to be the end? Was the cost that jail time? No. The warm-up was jail. Harlem is not yet done speaking. At the end of the teaser, Cam holds out a phone and presses play. Just before the soundtrack begins, the screen goes blank. That phone, according to insiders, it includes a taped conversation between Jim and an unidentified/taped. ITAD and an unidentified/Tate. Like, look at this. And we all know I've been exploring. And we all know I've been exploring that. Begins, the screen goes belong. This screen goes blanged. That belies McGind. That would be equated so court according Clan H Day. A conweed, deplicati, Cloud. We like cicady to fi riki it. Get kayun y kakor to kikada sav you can korakanuk ag kor sinu weekend you to kun you can weed a like kikwika see you to ku same weed a kakayar I kakayu kik to kai with feet hifana wit to with akudika was this kanip kikatas kawiki and took executive in which he purportedly acknowledges that Cam's brand was too powerful to control. If that audio is released, it may be the last straw for Jim's career, as well as the reputation of everyone who supported him. In the meantime, how's Jim doing? Still not conscious. He is stable, according to the doctors, but sedated for trauma and edema. Since the incident, he has been silent. What happens if he awakens to this storm? His name will reverberate with dishonor rather than honor when he returns to this planet. What about Chrissy? She has stopped talking. Leave a comment. Demies have closed, and there was only one quotation in her most recent story. You are free to despise me. However, I never told lies. Now. Though the issue is, who else did? Because if Cam is going to release voicemails, court documents, classified video, and conversations that have been leaked by major networks, nobody is secure. Not supervisors, not manufacturers, not previous partners, not even Netflix. This isn't a beef anymore. Cultural reckoning is required. Does Cam really have more? Then Harlem continues to speak. All it is doing is clearing its throat. This was more than simply a brawl. One guy in a hospital bed, another bearing the burden of a legal system, and a fan base divided between truth and treachery. This was the public collapse of a legacy unfolded in real time. In addition to using his hands, Cameron also used paperwork, receipts, and the anger of a man whose narrative had been omitted. Once a street-certified legend, Jim Jones is now mute, as his crew works to safeguard a business based on manipulated memories. However, the true query isn't, who struck whom? The question is, who betrayed whom first? We now ask you, did Cam have the right to blow up after being betrayed for so long? Did Jim go too far in excluding him from their history? Is Chrissy simply defending her own interests? Or is she the genius that no one anticipated? Leave your comments with your ideas. Which team are you more devoted to? Team Jones or Team Cam? Give this video to someone who needs to witness. Dipsets decline because they remember its ascent. If the content of this video still astounds you, hit the like button. We're keeping tabs on every leak, court update, and name that is hauled next. So be sure to subscribe. Press that notification bell to find out when Cam releases part 2. We will arrive first, dissecting everything, exposing all falsehoods. For this reason, Dipset will not finish here. The reality is just getting started.